Now, Canon Jock Dalrymple will give us his reflection and blessing. Canon Jock.
Good evening, everybody. We've just listened to the luminous mysteries of the Rosary. I hope you won't mind if I'm personal. They have a special place in my heart. 20 years ago, in October 2002, I went on a cycling holiday to Italy, beginning in Rome, involving putting my bike on a plane here in Edinburgh and taking it off at Rome's airport of Fiumicino and cycling into the city, indeed into St. Peter's Square. And I think it was the next day that I returned there. I think it was probably bookshop hunting. And that was the Wednesday, the 16th of October, 2002. But I found, to my surprise, when I arrived in St. Peter's Square, there was a papal audience going on. So obviously I stopped to listen. And I found myself hearing Pope John Paul II saying something rather momentous. And I was struggling to understand because of rusty Italian. But at that moment, he was announcing that he was introducing 5 new decades of the Rosary to bridge the gap between the sorrowful mysteries, or rather the joyful mysteries, with the finding of Jesus in the temple as their final one, and the sorrowful mysteries with their first mystery of the agony in the garden. And he was giving us these 5 luminous mysteries, or mysteries of light: the baptism in the Jordan, the wedding of Cana, the proclamation of the kingdom, the transfiguration, and the institution of the Eucharist. I couldn't really believe my ears. This, after, was it the 14th century or the 13th century that St. Dominic had introduced the Rosary, or so tradition has it. Now, 700 years later, we were getting 5 new mysteries. So I have a special affection for these mysteries of light. But it's actually the first time I've been asked to speak on them in a pro-life context. And I was reflecting today, what message do these mysteries give about life? I think it's important to answer that by seeing them in context. The luminous mysteries are preceded by the joyful mysteries of the Rosary, which are all about Jesus's conception and birth and growing up. And there's a natural connection, therefore, I think, between these mysteries and seeking to reverence and protect and support life in the womb and in the early years of life. And that followed, the luminous mysteries, that is, by the sorrowful mysteries, which seem to me, since they focus on Jesus's suffering and death, to provide a focus for pro-life work, protecting and supporting life in its final stages, whether through palliative care or fighting against euthanasia or the death penalty. What about these luminous mysteries? What might the focus be for us in them? Well, in my first 10 years as a priest from 1986 to 1996, I was struck by the American Cardinal Bernardin, who died of cancer in 1996, his consistent life ethic. I think he talked about the seamless garment and how pro-life activity must link up protection of life from conception to natural death. Therefore, just as the luminous mysteries offer a bridge between the joyful and sorrowful mysteries, So perhaps a focus on praying them in a pro-life context might be to focus on the third of these mysteries, the proclamation of the reign of God. Jesus preached the kingdom of God, the reign of God, as we see right at the start of Mark's gospel and in the other gospels too. And to remember that being pro-life involves not just fighting against abortion and against euthanasia and against the death penalty, but also promoting life for all, and especially those whose life is threatened by sickness or ill health or depression or mental health issues, or this year particularly we think of it, war or poverty or whatever. I've just been on retreat in a convent in Surrey the week before last, and while there I began to read this book, or reread it actually, Jose Pagula's Jesus Historical Approximation. And what he's helped me to understand is how Jesus was passionately concerned for the many oppressed people in the Galilean villages through which he walked. They were oppressed by the Roman Empire and Roman soldiers. They were oppressed by the social and economic conditions, rich landowners. And they struggled to get through the day and find work and enough food for their families. And to them, he proclaimed the reign of God, the kingdom of God, desperate that they be aware both of the Father's love for them and of their own dignity and value. So for me, being pro-life is actually rather an exhausting and challenging thing to be, because it involves promoting life for all from conception and birth, through all that people live, all the struggles of so many people in our world, so that they might live life with dignity and to the full. But I want to just quote something from Pagula, which was the stage of the book I've got to. And by chance, it's actually next Sunday's gospel that he's referring to here. According to an old Christian story, when the disciples of John the Baptist ask him, "Are you the one who is to come?" Jesus simply tells them what's happening. "Go and tell John what you hear and see. The blind receive their sight, the lame walk, the lepers are cleansed, the deaf hear, the dead are raised, and the poor have good news brought to them. And blessed is anyone who takes no offense at me." Jesus understood, says Pagula, that God was acting in power and mercy, healing the sick and defending the life of the wretched. This is what was happening, even if it went against the expectations of the Baptists and many others. What was being fulfilled, instead of the dark prophecies of the apocalyptic writers, was the promise of the prophet Isaiah, the coming of God to liberate and heal his people. It's a great Advent reading. Our God, coming in the vulnerability of a stable, is coming to heal and liberate his people. May God bless you this Advent and this Christmastide. May he give you energy and hope and wisdom to support and protect and promote life from conception to natural death. May God, particularly in this Advent season, bless all expectant mums and dads in all their anxieties and in their hopes and joys. And may many a healthy baby, secure in the knowledge of being loved and of being a child of God, may many a healthy baby be born in the months in front of us. Good night and God bless you. and happy Christmas when it comes.
Thank you, Canon Jock. That was wonderful. And great to hear that you were actually there when Pope John Paul proclaimed the mysteries. Thank you, everybody. Please do join us next week when we will be hearing from Father Josh Moyer, who was ordained this year and will be dialing in from Rome, where he's completing further studies. For now, thank you again. Thank you, Canon Jock. Good night.